Oh, I already started.
So, I want to thank the Scoville Library and Julia for enabling me to bring this program to you. I want to thank Colin May for helping out with some IT. And I'm Mary O'Neill. I'm the co-host of Main Street Moxie podcast. And today I'm going to take you through my experience with podcasting, and hopefully you'll walk out having learned a little bit more than you know right now about what goes into what you listen to through your headphones. So I created a presentation. What I'd like to do is go through the presentation and then have them stop the recording, and then we can do Q&A, and I can show you different parts of behind the scenes in the podcast. But so I just, if it's okay with you to kind of move through and then come back to questions, that's how I'd like to do it. So the podcast I'm affiliated with is Main Street Moxie, and that is an offshoot. Oh, I'm so sorry. That is an offshoot of Main Street Magazine, which is this magazine. Feel free to take a copy. This is a magazine that's been published out of Milverton for the past over 10 years. I've been writing for them for that time. And Thorin Christiansdottir, who is my co-host and the editor and founder of Main Street Magazine, approached me over 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, to start a podcast. I stiff-armed her for as long as I could, and then we finally took the plunge. So I want to bring you through our journey. It's so Main Street Moxie is very much part of the brand of Main Street Magazine, which is to tell positive stories about the people, places, and organizations in Northwestern Connecticut, along the New York border, and up into Massachusetts. So feel free to take one of those magazines. So, what is a podcast? A podcast is typically audio, although it's increasingly creeping into the video format. We have not made that foray into video. You can do that on YouTube. We can also put our audio over on YouTube, which I haven't done yet, but typically it has been in the past audio only. It is a downloadable media file, so you can download it to your device or listen to it on a podcast directory, which I will get into. It's focused on a topic or theme, and typically there are seasons or series. So Main Street is in its 3rd season. Some podcasts, like a true crime podcast, will run through a season where they have a start to finish exploring one case. And then the next season is a whole new episode, a whole new set of episodes about something different. We just do 11 episodes a year, and that's our season. And then we go to the next one. So we're in our 3rd season, halfway in. Yay. So, this is a lot to read, but I just wanted to give you who is listening. 450 million podcasts, 183 million Americans listen. 38% of Americans listened in the last month, 464 million podcast listeners worldwide. And those are the demographics of who's listening. 50% are under 34, 43 or 35 to 54, and 22% are over 55. There's a slight bit of slight amount more of men than women listen. The biggest podcast is Joe Rogan, with I think it's 1.7 million followers. He is by far the biggest podcast. Okay, most podcasts don't reach those levels, and I have a slide to show you some of the statistics about listenership. So, okay, so Main Street Moxie, in 2023, we were in the top 50% of all podcasts. Our top listenership was 266 downloads. So you can see, once you get past like Joe Rogan and Pod Save America and all those big ones that come up at the top of your podcast directory, things drop off quite precipitously. So we are in the top 50%. We are heard in 29 countries. We had 11 episodes in 2023 for a total of 545 minutes, and we had 1,700 downloads. We have another episode launching tonight, which is our 40th episode. So we typically launch late Sunday night for Moxie Monday once a month. Okay, so that's just a little statistics about our podcast. Just to give you a sense, this is off my podcast host, the statistic. In 2023, we scored in the top 50% of all podcasts, and that's rated by the average downloads in the first 7 days, figuring most people are going to download pretty quickly after the episode is launched. If you teach at a college, you can require they listen to your podcast for homework, which ups your listenership by 30 every semester. So by my estimation, we're actually somewhere in the middle of 25 and 50, because we definitely have more than 30 downloads in the first 7 days. The top 1%, 4,500 downloads in the first 7 days. That doesn't tell you how long people are listening. They could download and walk away after 2 minutes. It doesn't give you that information. Thorin can see that more. If they're listening off the website, she can see how long they stayed on the website. But on my podcast host, Buzzsprout, this is what I get. If someone clicked in, they can listen for a few minutes, they count. So I would say we're probably in the top 35% of podcasts, which is kind of amazing. So you can see that you can be successful in this and not be Joe Rogan, because people, that's just an anomaly, those high-end performers. I'm sorry. Whoops, wait, hold on. Okay, so why would you want to do a podcast? Well, you might want to get famous, which good luck to you. You might want to inform people about some kind of topical content that is important to you. You might have a niche interest like bugs or coin collecting or fly fishing, and you might decide, I need to let the world know about this passion of mine. And you might just want to use it as an opportunity to chit chat with friends in a recorded format. You need to be very clear on your why, not to get all Simon Sinek on you, but you need to know your why. Why am I doing this? Because if you're not attached to your why, then this sometimes chore of creating and generating podcast content month after month or week after week, or however frequently you want to do it, gets onerous. So for Main Street, ours was to amplify telling good stories about people that we encounter in this. A lot of them are in the local community, but even wider. Then you need to think about, who am I making this for? We made it for the residents of this area, hoping to get a wider circulation, which we have achieved depending on the guest. And I will say we were much clearer on our why than our who. We didn't really give a lot of thought to that, other than magazine readership and interested people. But it was that one, in hindsight, could we have done more work into honing our audience perhaps, but we didn't let that get in the way of us launching. So, but those are questions you need to ask yourself when you're starting out conceptualizing this. There is multiple formats to a podcast. Some of them, if you listen to some, they've got music in the background and they've got narration, and then they have a guest come in and then they share research, and they get very complicated. We went for a conversational interview. So Thorin and I get on with the guests. I don't know if any of you click through and listen to at least part of an episode, but we get on with one guest and we talk about their life, their moxie, their grit, determination, courage, bravery, resilience, those topics. And we do it through the lens of their lives. So that's our way of approaching podcasts. It seemed the least onerous. We didn't have to research a lot of things and become experts. We just have to research the individual to have enough information to ask intelligent questions and pull interesting things out of them. So that was the format that we decided to go with, and it's been working. We've had very good feedback from our guests. That's the other thing, we don't tend to hear a lot of feedback from people who have listened. I don't know that we fully cultivated the avenues to get that information, but our guests hear it. So we try to get them to share with us what they're hearing. Okay, so the elements of our podcast. Music. Thorin had hers, she called in a favor from a musician friend who we told him the kind of energy and vibe that we wanted. There are websites out there where you can download other people's music and use that, but she had someone record our music. Artwork, you typically need a tile that has to be specific dimensions. Thorin is a graphic artist and website designer, so that was easy for us, but you can create your art in Canva, which you can do for free. Find a teenager, get them to do that for you. We wanted something with bright colors, something with power, and that's the tile that represents our brand in the podcast. So that's our artwork. You need an intro, so Thorin and I will sit down and we will, having done the research, we will do an introduction depending on who introduced the guest. If it's a friend of mine, she'll say, "So Mary, how do you know Eileen Fox?" And I'll say, "She's my neighbor, and that's how I came to know her." And we just do a brief little introduction, and that's a standalone. Then the body is the actual podcast itself. And then the outro is our wrap up, where we talk about what we learned. That's the format that works for us. We always end our podcast, I had done in my research, that you should always leave your audience with something that they can take away. So at the end of every episode, we ask our guests, if you had to give one small piece of advice for someone looking to move their Moxie needle one click, what would it be? And that's what we hope people walk away with, to distill. The outro is just Thorin and I talking about what we learned and kind of joking around and saying goodbye to each other. We try to keep it light. We're trying to be fun and enthusiastic. Another important element is your show notes, which I will show you in our situation. Basically, those show notes are extra opportunities for your listeners to learn, to get a taste of what the episode is about, have clickable links. So you should always have clicks so people can find more information, go to the person's website, find out more about something that was discussed. I try to give a little teaser for what the episode is about, what we talk about, and then I include any links from the guests, including their social media, their website, articles they've written, videos they've made, any resources that they'd like shared goes into the show notes. So those get loaded up, all this gets loaded up onto the Main Street Moxie website, and the show notes gets also loaded up into our host, which I will show you in a little while. Thorin is also in a position to get sponsors for our episodes. So monetizing your podcast is something you don't need to, but if you wanted to try to make money, there are things you need to do to make that happen. Getting sponsors, keeping a record, showing them the analytics of where this episode is going. I would say if you really just want to share something that you like with the world, you can do it pretty low price and low tech, and you can get on a podcast host, and I'll show you the one that we use for the price of a glass of wine. So it's like $15 a month, and for me, it is worth every penny to have that podcast host in my back pocket. Okay, so that's my elements. I hope you're accumulating your questions. Another thing you need to think about is the frequency and duration of your podcast. These are some general guidelines for how podcasts, they run the gamut from 1 minute. Ours averaged Probably 50 to 65 minutes.
Wow.
So that's, but by the time you lay in the music, the sponsor information, the intro and the outro, we generally record with the guest for 45 minutes. We started out as bi-weekly, and that was killing me to have guests and record and edit and get the show notes and get it up. And I basically went into Thorin like ready to cry, and I'm like, we gotta take this to monthly as a part-time endeavor. The monthly format works so much better for us. But if you want to share 5 minutes of inspiration a day, you don't need to, you can just do that. There's no right answer with podcasting. That's the beauty of it. Whatever works for you is what works. So the frequency, as I said, we went for once a month. You're supposed to, podcast wisdom, you're supposed to keep it as regular as you can. Whatever you decide to do as your frequency, stick with it. Because podcast listeners are creatures of habit, and they want to know that on the third Moxie Monday of the month, I don't know if they do that for us, but they want to know that the podcast is going to download something. If you are sick for 3 weeks out of the month and you can't get much up, get something up. So twice a year, Thor and I just kick it back and forth for 15 minutes with each other, just to keep the placeholder for like August and I think it's December, for the holidays. So if you can try to stay regular and not miss a month or whatever the frequency is, that is best practice. Sometimes it's not possible. So, thing is to have fun with this and not kill yourself over it. Because I imagine if you're here, you want to do it because you feel joyful about something and you want to share it. So don't let that, just don't get so tied down to the best practice, but know what's out there, is my advice to you. When you start your podcast, the common wisdom is have 3 episodes at least in the can when you launch. Launch with your first, and you can have a hard launch, like think of it opening a store. You can have a soft opening or a hard launch. And the hard launch is you pull out the stops and you get that message out on every medium possible that this is when it's dropping. Or a soft launch is you do it amongst your own social media community, your friends and family, and you just slip an episode in just to kind of get yourself out there. But they say to have 3 episodes because people like to binge. Not only their Haagen-Dazs, but their podcasts. So people will go from one episode to the next. So have at least 3 to start, if you can. Again, don't let that stop you from getting it out there. But again, this is best practice from the research that I did 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. This is the equipment that we have. Some people, and Thorin had a budget that I could spend up to. I did a ton of research. It's super overwhelming sometimes with the amount of information that's out there, the amount of people who talk in tech language. But I was able to find enough people. I would talk to people. We found people all over the place who knew someone who did a podcast, who knew about audio editing, who was, I talked to the drama teacher up at Salisbury School. I talked to my friend's daughter-in-law who works for a company that finds guests for people's podcasts. I talked to a lot of people. And once you start putting it out there at your next cocktail party or family picnic that you're thinking of doing this, people know people who can help you. And don't be shy from picking their brains. So you could do this on your phone, on your iPhone. You could record in the middle of the table and edit it from there. Or you can do any combination of these things. So for our microphone, I picked an Audio-Technica 2100X that keeps, because we were all sitting around a table, I wanted the sound to stay very true to this alley between the person's mouth and the microphone. So I picked one that would do that. I've been very happy with these microphones. It's right there, and Audio Technica has been great. One of them stopped working. I sent it back. They sent me a new one. And those cost about $49 on Amazon. So that's not a huge expense. You need an SD card for this Zoom H6. I can't remember why this was touted as something that you need to have, but I love it because it doesn't rely on my computer. It doesn't, I can have this in the middle of the table. I have this, oh, I don't have the SD card in it because I took it out. But you need an SD card, which is it's the small one that goes right in this little hole. And it's got 4 intakes for 4 microphones. So I plug 4 microphones or 3, depending, into these. They have separate volume controls. They have 2 microphones that you see here, that if you want to use those, you just have to experiment with your sound quality. But it comes with 2 microphones. It shows you the volume levels here. And it shows you how many minutes you've done. I've been very, very happy with this. They have, go to the Zoom. It's not the Zoom that we're recording on. If you put in Zoom H6, it'll bring you to the Zoom website. Mm-hmm. It's not the recording platform. And they even have podcasting kits now with a microphone and a less expensive one of these. Okay, so I've been very, very happy with this. The headphones, those just kept coming up on the research that I was doing. So those are right here. There's Sony Professional. They were $98 each. You can go cheaper. So this was kind of where we landed. The pop filters are really important. That's this. That filters out the plosives, your P's, and it keeps it from getting into that explosion into the microphone. So those were like $7. The external hard drive. So after I pull my SD card out of here, you need a laptop that can accommodate an SD card. You put it in there, and then I upload it to my sound editing platform, which I'm going to get to. And then I work on it up on my computer. So you definitely need, if you're going to edit on your computer, you need a computer that can handle. We're not working with video files, audio file, Colin, is this right? Audio files are smaller, much smaller. So we are only working with audio. So I think my next slide is actually the technology. I am not an Apple person. GarageBand is on your Apple computers. That's what you would use. I felt it was a bridge too far for me to go from my PC to Apple and then do this, because we were working to try for a December 21 launch. I was working on my old laptop with a hard drive that I think was formatted for Apple, and everything kept crashing. I don't know if you remember, it was a basket case. I upgraded to a new computer that I went online and said, best Microsoft laptop for podcasting. And I just went down and looked at one that hit the sweet spot for me. So I use Audacity, which is a free crowdsourced sound editing platform. I'll show you what it looks like to edit sound waves. That is a learning curve. I know what I need to know to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And what I would suggest to you, if you use that platform, is know what you need to know. And then when you encounter an issue, take yourself onto YouTube, watch the videos of people who have encountered that situation. The Audacity has a help area, but it's a crowdsourced free platform that a lot of podcasters use. There's another thing that came out just kind of when I was getting started with this, and I had gotten so far with Audacity that I couldn't go back and learn something else. It's called Descript, and it takes your sound waves and converts them to transcript, and you edit as if you're editing a Word document. So the hums D-script. And so a woman that I talk to a lot, Judith Monachino, who runs the Oral History Center at Berkshire Community College, we both felt that that platform not sanitized, but it didn't allow for the nuances that editing the sound can give you. So every time you hear an you can strike it out of the transcript. But maybe at one point you want the maybe they're saying something really profound and you just like, no, it sounds like it needs to be there. So again, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm working with Audacity and so far it's been okay. I use Zoom for remote podcast recordings. The professional membership is well worth it. I think it's about 100 and something a year, maybe 150, but I've gotten coupons every year. So, I mean, my American Express even had a promotion with Zoom for the annual fee. The great thing about Zoom is you can record audio only, so it downloads or uploads audio files into the cloud. You can pull them in separately. You never work in stereo, you always work in mono. So you're always recording and editing in mono. And the other thing that's great about Zoom is if you have the professional version, if this is something that you want to do, it will produce a written transcript, which some podcasts have. I think Apple Podcasts has started creating those transcripts. I have not delved into that yet. So those are the platforms. So I regularly use my laptop, my Audacity, and my Zoom account. And remote interviews are completely, once I got over the fear of doing it, they work out really well. They work out really well. And I'll talk about that a little in 1 second. Okay, recording and editing. The best equipment that you can afford, given your investment in this process, because most podcasts don't make it past a couple of episodes. So I feel like I'm a grandma in this with 2.5 years. The higher your level of recording at the moment, the less editing you will have to do. So that means getting a quiet location. This would not be a good room. Your closet, a very furnished room with a lot of pillows and rugs and wall hangings. So you're not getting the bouncing of the echo. You need sound absorption. So definitely find a place where you can do this and not have trucks going by and the phone ringing in the background, because then you have to edit those out behind someone's voice. And that is way above my pay grade. So if you listen to Main Street Moxie, you might hear some trucks passing by, and it's just the way it is. Beware the table banger. So we have our setup on a table with this, and we have people come in and they wanna make a point. And that all gets picked up into the microphone. So every time we say, okay, we have a towel down and we have like a padding and every guest, I don't bang the table. Every single time someone's making a point and the fist goes down on the table. So one of the things that's on our to-do list is get a microphone, put the guest in an easy chair with one of those mics that stands on its own platform. We have not done that yet. This is what sound waves looks like in Audacity. That's what I'm editing. So I'm listening to the words go by, and then say I get to this and like, oh, that's an I will take my tool and I will cut that out. And after a while, you can start to recognize the sound patterns of people's ums.
Where is the you were in front of this?
It could be this, but like I would go in and cut that out.
Okay.
And and if someone had like a really long pause when they're trying to collect their thoughts, it's a flat line, so I'll cut that out. And I don't do a lot of fancy editing. We just go. Unless someone has said something that I think doesn't translate well, I will cut that out, but I don't do editing where I'm rearranging the order of the content. I'm just going. So when people tape, we tell them what you hear, what you say is what's going to be in the podcast. But we say, if you say something that you don't like what you said, leave a lot of dead air around it and I'll take it out. So we do some editing, but it's mostly like, that didn't come across well, let me start over.
Mhm.
I can cut that out, but I don't do a lot of fancy editing. The two formats that work the best, I prefer WAV, but MP3 is another one. Those are the two formats that are typically used. So that's what Audacity looks like, and you don't need to know a lot to get started in there. You just need to be willing to fail, make mistakes, get extremely frustrated, and come back and keep trying again. But I know what I need to know to get the job done, and every so often I encounter something else, and then I'll look up how to do it. So I wouldn't say, you don't need to be an expert to get started in Audacity, if you choose that. For remote recording, as I said, we only use the audio. So when I go into my Zoom setting, I can only record the audio. It just saves a lot of space, memory space, to record the audio. So basically what happens is I'll record the audio, I'll tell the people that I'll send guidelines. This is critical. If you're doing a remote recording, you need to send guidelines to your guests. Please be in a quiet location. Please be wearing headphones. Please have, you know, your mic on your laptop is fine. Try to not have background noise. You want to give them information so that they can be the best guest possible. So you're not doing a lot of editing. So basically, Zoom records an MP4, which is, I think, a format that recognizes video and other formats. But that's not what is used by Audacity. So what I have to do is the MP4 recording gets uploaded into the Zoom cloud, not this Zoom, this Zoom. Gets uploaded in the cloud. I have to download those files onto my computer, upload them into Cloud Convert, which is a free conversion platform that converts my MP4s into WAV. That is readable by Audacity. Then I have to download the WAV back to my computer. There might be a shortcut, but this is the way I do it. And then I upload the WAV into Audacity. So you have to take the format that Zoom works in, MP4, and get it over to WAV for Audacity to do it. So it's just a bit of uploading and downloading. It's not complicated, it just is a number of steps. But that's how I do it. But the Cloud Convert is a free platform. You can do X number of minutes without any cost, and it works like it's a miracle. So that's how the remote recording works. Again, we only do the audio portion, and Zoom has worked so well for that. I was shocked.
So the Zoom file that's generated is an MP4.
Yes, and that's uploaded iStore, so it says you want to download this to your computer or up to the cloud. And I upload everything to the cloud in Zoom. That's the business account. I don't know what the unpaid version is. Okay. You've gone through the recording, you've done the editing, you're ready to get that podcast out to the waiting public. So there are two things you need to know about this. Your podcast host is the place where you take that finished Audacity file. So I've gone in and I've laid over, the music is on one track, the intro is on another track, the sponsors are on another track. So I will have maybe 10 tracks, and then you line them up and sequence them. So when the music ends, the sponsor spot starts. When that stops, I go to music again. Then I go to the intro, music. So they also say if you do a longer episode, so ours are 45 to 50 minutes of content, in the middle, they say break it up. So I'll just break it at a good point, have a little music, a sponsor, a little music, and then we start back up with the rest of the episode. So Buzzsprout, I've been super happy with. I highly recommend them, but again, this is my personal experience. You can do, maybe it's up to an hour for free. For 3 hours of downloading, which is plenty for us, so a month, it's $12. And then we get a little add-on of a sound filtering platform, a mix mastering that they put, that you can pay $3 a month for, which we've opted for. So that's $15 a month. What the host does is that's where your podcast is sitting. That's where you load up the show notes, and I'll show you this afterwards with Peter Lefferts' episode. He was one of our latest guests, and he's a known quantity in Lakeville, Salisbury. So it sits up there, and then it disperses the podcast out to all the directories, and that includes Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker. I'm going to show you all this in a minute. That is what you need to know. Buzzsprout, it's easy to use, it's intuitive, the help email is amazing. Every time I've had a question, within an hour, someone gets back to me with a detailed answer, super polite. I am very happy with Buzzsprout as my podcast host. The RSS feed is something that Buzzsprout generates, and the RSS feed is the language, the URL, the site, whatever, the location that gets fed out to all your directories. If you have a website, you load the RSS feed up into your website so that people can listen to it there, which they can do on, I'll show you the Moxie website as well. So the RSS feed is the bridge between your host and the various directories. So if you want people more than friends and family to listen to this, you need to find a host, and then you need to get it onto a directory. And I'll show you, when you register with Buzzsprout, it has all of the directories listed. So you can apply to have your podcast on all the directories through Buzzsprout, which is a huge, it's just, they make it so easy. It's the easiest part of the job. So again, that's just a personal recommendation. I've enjoyed that. I don't get paid to promote them. Okay, that's Peter sharing. Is that the next slide? Yes. Okay, so Peter was a recent guest. Peter's an artist who lives in Sharon. And what really needs to happen is you need to find people to share your podcast out. They say to have other podcast hosts on your own podcast and do a little cross-fertilization. We have not done that yet. But when we talked to Peter, we said the more you can share it, the more listens it's gonna get. We can only do so much. And he was able to send it to his students and his email lists and his publisher, and it really boosted the initial listenership. So any way that you can share your podcast episode on Facebook, all your social media, have your friends share it, have a newsletter, that's another way to share the content. But you want to get it out there through social media, and we have found if the guest shares it, it does better. So it's really important to have your guests share. All the books that I've read about podcasting say get it good enough and get it out there, because you will sit and you will try to make it perfect and you will never get yourself out into the space. And you'll never learn from your mistakes if you don't sit down and just press the button and get it out. So that's exactly what we did. And it was scary because I'm kind of a perfectionist. But it's good enough. I mean, it's the things that are important for me is that we strike the right tone, that we pay homage to the guests that we're having by doing the proper research and asking them thoughtful questions, and that our sound quality is good, that people don't have to struggle to hear it. Because if they have to struggle to hear it, then what's the point? And then this is our website and information. And now I would like to say thank you to everyone. We're